Welcome back to another episode of Meanwhile Back on the Podcast. I'm Saba.
I'm Kristina Dudumas.
And I'm Chris.
So for those of you tuning in for the first time, Meanwhile is a podcast where four very different people with four very different opinions and thoughts come together to talk about the one thing they all have in common: loving fandom in all its forms. Do we disagree on things? Yes. Do we sometimes annoy each other? Very much so at times. But at the end of the day, we all get along and we all love talking about made-up shit. So come join. We'd love to have you at the table. This is our second installment of our anime series. On today's episode, we're diving into a classic Studio Ghibli movie. HBO Max recently added the Ghibli catalog in their mix, and Netflix Canada also announced that they were adding 25 movies into their rotation. We're going to be taking a deep dive into one of the classics, so stay put. Cue the music.
Meanwhile, back on the podcast, four colossal nerds named Saba, Chris, Kristina, and Frank have set out to take on a great darkness that has enveloped the world of fandom with their powers of common sense and the strength to take on even the most butthurt Twitter mobs and insufferable comment section trolls. They fight for truth, objectivity, and nuance in the conversation and debate over fictional made-up shit.
All right, guys. So today we are going to be talking about a little movie called Spirited Away. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's one of Ghibli's, actually, the biggest movies. It's one of the, I think, 10 highest grossing anime films made in Japan. I think it's actually still one of the top highest grossing movies in Japan. It also won an Academy Award in 2003 for Best Animated Feature. It grossed over 360 million worldwide, and it's really just an amazing movie altogether. How would you guys explain the Studio Ghibli to people who maybe don't know about their movies or, haven't really watched a lot of Japanese animation? Like, how would you guys kind of describe it? Because it has its own feel. When you say
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like, Studio Ghibli is just has a special place in your heart. It's completely different from any other anime that you can think of. It's very it has this amazing ability to draw you into their world because it's so complete and so filled with lore. And I don't know, and the animation style is different. It's very whimsical, but also very mysterious. It's just something special about so many different flavors all mixed in, and it's really hard to explain to someone. But when you watch a Studio Ghibli movie, you know that it's a Studio Ghibli because it has its own flavor, and it's always amazing. I don't know, for me,
you can recognize. You can recognize the animation from a mile away. Sometimes I'll watch something and I'll be like, did Hayao Miyazaki have something to do with this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think the films definitely have their own vibe, and it's kind of something that feels magical and surreal, but very grounded at the same time. And I love the way they capture very normal things and the way random characters in the world kind of interact with the main characters. So something you don't see a lot. You don't see someone on the bus winking at your character knowingly, or some kind of smile to a stranger. You don't see that a lot in any other kind of medium, I don't think. So I think it's those kinds of things that kind of make the Ghibli films feel so interesting and engaging.
And the one thing I'll say too is that, sometimes people call it the Disney of Japan, because a lot of its leads are females, but the way that really sort of changes is that and oftentimes in cinema when kind of females are portrayed a certain way, there's no trope it feels like it's fitting into. Even with this movie Spirited Away, which we're talking about, Chihiro is just a normal young girl. She is kind of annoyed in the beginning and everything else, and it's how they kind of find their story. And I was reading this thing that apparently Hayao Miyazaki, who is one of the founders of Studio Ghibli, that he got the idea of this movie after seeing his friend's 10-year-old sullen daughter, who was just very just not happy at the time for whatever reason, and she was reading these shoujo mangas, which are basically comics for little girls, and they're magical or whatever, and he wanted to create something different, and so he kind of took that as inspiration. That's the one thing, one of you guys said whimsical, they're so freaking whimsical. It's the stories, how do you even think of the things that you think of?
Mm-hmm, exactly. No, and I like what you said about their main characters kind of having their own idiosyncrasies. They're very special within themselves. But also what I like is they also take in very grounded character traits, like or like character arcs. For example, like Chihiro, you're right. It's just kind of like this kind of like wimpy, spoiled brat, like sort of, and she's like kind of, and she's also gloomy because she just left all of her, like she moved from her where she grew up, and so she's kind of gloomy. So it's kind of like this coming of age story, but told in a way that you've never seen before, right? So it's like it takes on like this character arc of like this young girl growing up to maturity and letting go of her past, but like that, just saying that to you doesn't explain this movie at all, because there's so much more to that, right?
No, there's a stink monster.
Yeah. There's a hungry no face.
Yeah, there's no face. There's like giant pigs and a giant ass baby.
Let me ask you guys, like in terms of just Ghibli movies, is this where does this rank to you?
It's in my top 3. It's probably one of the best animated movies I've seen, I feel.
For me, it's like almost 1. If Mononoke Hime didn't exist, this would be number 1 Studio Ghibli movie, and maybe like number 4 or 5 actual movie. Just like, but Mononoke Hime is just like my favorite. So what about you? What about you, Kristina?
Kiki's Delivery Service is my number 1, but it's because of what Saba said about the characters having being so different and also kind of normal. That's the character I relate to most. So I feel like I am Kiki when I watch it, and it's very nostalgic for me because it's something I grew up watching. But yeah, so that one's always my number 1. But I really like this one. I've only seen a handful, so I can't necessarily rank them, but I enjoy what I've seen.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm kind of with you with like Princess Mononoke was one of my favorites as well. But Spirited Away is just like, not even that, but the music in Spirited Away is just
the
so
atmosphere.
Beautiful.
Like, everything about like them, just the world, just them like walking around in the bathhouse and in the city, in like all the scenery. I love the world building in this movie for sure. Yeah. More than most movies.
Well, when we kick off the story, okay, so when we're just like kicking it off, so basically Chihiro is in a car with her parents. She has these flowers of hers, and she's basically going to her new house, and she's sad. Like, obviously she doesn't want to leave her friends, and she's sad because her like flowers get crumpled. And the beautiful score by Joe Hisashi is like in the background, and they're kind of driving through the road. Also, her dad is a very crazy driver, and her mom is like just very like doesn't care that much. Yeah. Like you do, I don't know, like it's kind of weird. But the thing that sort of switches to like this weird spiritual world kind of thing is when they're trying to get to their house, their dad like finds a shortcut through like this forest, or what he thinks is like how to get there, and he drives like a crazy man through a forest path.
It's okay, he's got all-wheel drive.
Yeah, he has an Audi actually in the car that he's driving. And as they're driving, they're sort of seeing these like little things, like sort of callbacks to like Shintoism, which is, you know, a very, especially before like World War II was like very prominent in Japan. I mean, it still is. And they like happen upon like a tunnel, and they're like, let's go explore it, which is like not what my parents would do. I don't know if your family would do that, but they wouldn't be like, there's a weird tunnel here. And then like Chihiro's like, I don't want to go. And the mom's like, okay, well then stay in the car. It's like it's very funny how it starts off. But like you said, you kind of see she's kind of like wimpy in the beginning. Like she's just a 10-year-old girl, right?
Yeah, I think it was interesting how they got to that point. So this is definitely like my parents. So the dad decided he wanted to take a shortcut, and then the road was blocked by one of those little statues, Guardian the ghost statue. And they decided to go explore the tunnel because the dad remembered that there was a bunch of abandoned amusement parks, and he thought this might be, or I guess they just went through just out of curiosity, but when they got to the other side, he thought it might be an abandoned amusement park, and that caused them to kind of explore further. Yeah. So well, that's definitely my parents. They would do that.
Yeah, I don't know. My dad maybe would, but my mom would be like, get me out of here.
Well, the mom was hesitant. She was like, we have somewhere to be. Like, I don't know. Like, and she just went along with it after.
The one thing I will say, though, is that, so I looked up the whole, like, abandoned amusement park thing and everything else, and this isn't actually, like, a real thing. So basically, a lot of what this movie is kind of about is sort of post-war Japan, because post-war Japan was, like, very into capitalism and sort of Western influences, and they sort of, like, kind of moving away from Shintoism. And because of that, like they basically like I think the years between like 1990 and 2001 is called like the lost decade in Japan, just because of like financial crises and everything else. So there were a lot of theme parks that were abandoned. And basically, I think what this movie is like you're seeing that like the spiritual side of things have been like pushed away for like capitalism. Like even so, when she goes to this world, the spirit world, to stay in it, she has to ask for a job, right? Like that's the first thing. If she has a job, then she can stay. She doesn't have a job, then she'll be kicked out, right? Like even that thing alone is like sort of showing like in terms of, like I think a really big theme in this movie in general is just like greed.
Yeah, that I can see, but like I've never considered that your point about capitalism. It makes a lot of sense, but I never picked up on that. That was good. But yeah, like greed for sure is like you can see it everywhere in here, like the Yubaba. Yeah, so like you can see it especially with the main antagonist, if you can call her that. She's just another character in my opinion, but Yubaba, like that, like her whole thing is about greed. And even No Face is like gluttony, which is like a form of greed if you really think about it, right? Yeah, like you absolutely right. Like especially with the greed, a lot of characters kind of represent it for me. Like especially the main antagonist, Yubaba, the witch that she eventually like starts working for. Like her whole thing is like is like greed. That's her main character trait. And No Face as well, I think, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of gluttony, but it's about the same thing in my opinion. But yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, No Face too. So okay, actually, before we jump into No Face. So, in terms of the story, like Kristina said, like they kind of stumble upon this abandoned, place, this abandoned theme park, and there's like food stalls, and this is another thing. Like their parents just are like chowing down on the food, like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so
they had no questions or reservations about it. They just accepted that, like, oh, there's this buffet, and like, oh, there's all this food. We'll pay later. We don't even care if the person's not here to take our money.
Okay, but how good did that food look, though?
It did.
That's all I kept remembering.
It did.
Like when he like chowed down on the entire like chicken, I'm like, God damn, I want that.
I know, but they got real gross after a while. I was like,
yeah, after a while, yeah, for sure. Yo, so when I first watched,
I think there was definitely a theme of temptation there too. So
oh yeah, 100%.
That
for
was
sure. So this movie came out like 19 years ago, and when I watched it, I tried to look for that place. I was like a young idiot kid, and I really wanted to go find this place, and I was like looking up like abandoned theme parks and stuff. I wanted to get Spirited Away so bad.
Yo, I feel you. I did the same thing with Narnia. I climbed into every freaking closet I could. You just got double check.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, there are a lot of abandoned theme parks, and they do look creepy. I was like Googling pictures of this, and it's interesting. Yeah. I would definitely explore them if I went to Japan. It would be on my list.
Yeah, it definitely would be a creepy vibe because it's like this strange. Yeah, there's something, I don't know. There's just something about it. But the other thing is, so a lot of times, like, and this is something you'll see in a lot of folklore, is that when you eat the food of the place you're in, whether you're in like a fairy realm or anything else, that's your kind of fatal flaw there. You're stuck there, right?
Yeah.
And because what happens to Chihiro at this point is she starts looking around and she sees a bridge and she sees this bathhouse and onsen. And, and onsens are like very traditionally Japanese. Like people go there to clean themselves and, like the hot springs and everything else, like that is obviously very much pulling from like Japanese culture. Especially the type of onsen it is. It seems very traditional. And she's on this bridge and she sees a boy who is so dreamy. I mean, now I'm older, so I can't say that. But when I was younger, I was like so dreamy. Haku, and he's saying, you need to get across the river. Like you have to get across because if you don't get across, you're going to be stuck in the spirit world. So she goes to run and find her parents. And lo and behold, they have turned into actual pigs, which is distressing for any 10-year-old.
Which apparently, like Miyazaki is like famous for. Apparently, I didn't know that until recently. Like he always has like pigs in his movies. He even draws himself as pigs. It's weird.
Yeah, I know.
It's weird but cool, man. Like you do you, but still.
It's a strange quirk.
Yeah, I think that also symbolizes the gluttony of
sure.
what the parents did too. So they committed like the sin of gluttony, and that happened to them.
I love this sequence. Like this is one of my favorite sequences when the sun starts setting, and all of these people, like all of these spirits, these kamis, start appearing, and she essentially like this is her the sun setting on her old world because she's gonna get stuck there, and it's just like it has this like amazing creepiness and also like this like wonder, right? Like it's just like her being introduced to this world and she's completely scared, and it's complete and it's like completely like but the thing is like it's not the world itself isn't super scary. It's just scary to her because she doesn't know. So it's like these people, these like spirits kind of doing their own thing. But then yeah, I don't know, like this particular sequence holds a very special place in my heart. I think it was I think it was masterfully done.
Yeah, and I think there was something to that too. Like she disagreed with her parents' actions, and then they got punished for what they did, and she didn't. But she loves them so much that she wants to save them still. So
yeah,
yeah,
and
I think that. Oh, sorry. I think that's like something we experience in our lives as well. Like we hold our parents on this pedestal or whatever, and then at some point we just start to see them as people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
and then they turn into giant pigs. No, they don't. But the thing is, yeah, like as Chris, you were saying, like there's a whole scene with like the boat coming and like all the gods are sort of, or the commies are coming off the boat and are like getting like some sort of form, and they're basically all heading to this onsen. Like this onsen is this main place, and Chihiro was not able to make it across the river in time, and so Haku, this boy, finds her, right, and gives her, and he's like, you need to eat this like cherry or whatever, it's like some sort of berry, and he's like, because you need to like stay here, and he's so kind to her, and he sort of like gives her a vision of a path to take, and he's like, you need to go to this place and do this thing, and you have to like meet this guy, right? And this sequence really always gives me anxiety, is like those stairs that she climbs down.
Yeah, that was
it's
so
like,
scary to me.
Yeah, I was like, those are not. And the interesting thing is, so she climbs down those stairs multiple times in the movie. The first time you see her, she's so scared, and whereas this, I think near the end of the movie when she does the exact same thing, it's sort of like this headstrong girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can see the change happening in her.
Yeah,
if that makes
absolutely.
sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I really like the part leading up to that where Haku tells her, "You have to hold your breath while we cross the bridge." And
that was a good
watch
scene.
it. It was so, I was like so tense. Like, oh my god, is she gonna hold her breath across the bridge?
She
and like
was
they're
so
walking
close.
so slow.
And wasn't that the first time you see No Face? Like
Yeah,
he was on the bridge,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
it's
he
just this
watches
creepy
her.
dude. Yeah, this creepy like spirit who just wears a mask, which is actually a traditional Japanese mask, I'm pretty sure. And he's just like watching her, and as she's like, trying to blend in. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, like,
and apparently, if she was holding her breath, nobody could see her, but he could see her no matter what.
Yeah,
So,
he 100%
that was-
saw her like kind of going through, and No Face itself is such a strange, odd character, but
Mhm.
basically she like let's go for breath, and they smell her. They're like, there's a human here, we can smell it, and that's when like Haku kind of like sends her on her adventure. But basically, it comes down to this is that to stay in this world, like she has to have a job, right? And so she asks the guy. She meets this guy named Kamaji, who's like
I love
Boiler
Kamaji.
Man.
He's
Yeah.
so cool.
It's funny because he's like a very typical anime character in terms of he like seems not helpful. It's like tsundere, I think, is like the trope. It's like he's
Mhm.
not helpful,
Yeah.
but then he like he seems like he doesn't care, but he does care.
Yeah,
'Cause
he's actually
like,
really sweet. Yeah.
yeah, because if she was caught, like who knows what would happen to her. So when Lynn, this other character who works at
I love her too.
yeah, she's a great character when from the bathhouse gets introduced, and it was like, you have the human here, and he's like, oh, that's my granddaughter. She wants a job, kind of thing, right? That's like the main thing is that like she needs to have a job, and if she has a job, then she's allowed to stay in this world. If not, Yubaba will, I don't know what will happen to her. Will they kill her? Like I don't really know. But Kamaji is a cool character. He basically runs all the water stuff that like he basically runs the boiler, and you need that for this onsen.
Yeah.
So people will send down like little wooden card things that'll tell them like what they need in each onsen. And there's these little like guys that are like little soot, like little ash things that carry coal over to like the furnace. Do you guys remember those little guys?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
apparently he's used it before in another movie that I must have missed. But yeah, apparently that's like a character that Miyazaki likes to use. Those guys are really cute.
Yeah. But okay, so
Wait, before we move on, there's a scene that I wanted to think. When Haku feeds her the berry, it's really interesting to me because in a lot of so you said this before, where in like the underworld or fairy tales, it's when you're in the world, you're kind of visiting, and then when you eat something from that world, that's where you get anchored. And it's really interesting that they did this because in classical Greek mythology, like Hades does that to trick people into being imprisoned in Hades. So it's interesting here that it's the other way around, where it's like Haku does it to save her, or does he? Because like what happens to her when she disappears, right? Like maybe she goes back to her real world. But it's just really cool that like the writer kind of flipped it, and it's kind of like a good thing for her to be stuck in the world, to be anchored in the world, instead of like a trick to keep her there, right? Yeah. But anyways.
Well, the other thing too about that scene I forgot to mention is that he calls her Chihiro, and then she says, "How do you know my name?" And he's like, "You told me a long time ago." Right? And that's something that happens too. And then you're just like, what? But then he's like, goes off, runs away. And she ends up making it to Yubaba's like office with Lynn's help. And Yubaba does try to scare her, but she asks for a job. And that's the one thing that Haku told her, that she cannot turn you away if you ask for one. But if you do, she's like, you have to sign on a contract. And what she does is she gives Chihiro a new name, which is Sen. And what you'll notice that happens throughout the movie is that Chihiro starts to forget her name. And that's kind of how people get really stuck in this world, is that they lose their name. And once you lose your name, you can't go back. And I think there's like a lot of, again, when you think about it in like capitalism terms, like that really makes sense. So you're kind of like selling your soul to like stay ahead, and then you kind of forget your main intention in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I just found that whole
you know what I heard about, like something interesting I heard about this? I don't know who told me this, but Chihiro apparently means like 100 questions. And then when she took away like the so she didn't just give her Chihiro a new name. She kind of took away pieces of her name to leave Sen, and Sen is like 100. So she leaves like the number behind and takes away the question. So it's somebody told me that it's like a symbolism for her, kind of like taking away her ability to question things, but instead she's left with a number, which is all she is to Yubaba. She's just like another worker, another number. So it's like, I thought that was really cool.
Chris, I read that it actually means 1,000.
Oh, 1,000.
Sen is 1,000. Yeah.
Either way.
Also, what do you guys think of Yubaba?
I kind of love her, but hate her. Like she's just very like dramatic, and then a really weird mom.
Yeah, I think she's drawn so perfectly. Like she nails the whole like creepiness, but really powerful. But also like she's a mom, so she's like kind of like, her hair's kind of like tight, like pulled up tight until her like crazy fucking infant giant like escapes and stuff, and she like freaks out. I think she was like really well done character, and I found her really creepy.
I found her creepy too, especially like the way she treats her kid too. It's like she helicopter moms to the max kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah. I thought that was a lot.
Also, her baby is like 4, 5, like I don't know, like 10 of the size of the time, like 10 times the size of her.
Yeah.
At least. So I'm like, how did that work out?
That was so random. The baby and the 3 heads. Oh, sorry, Kristina, go ahead.
I thought it was interesting too when Chihiro first meets Yubaba, because she has to ask for the job. And then Yubaba doesn't want to give her a job. She's like, "Oh, you're like so useless. Why would I want to give you a job? You're so lazy."
And she's not far off at the beginning.
Yeah, like Yubaba can read her. Yubaba knows that this girl like never worked a day in her life.
Also, she's like pretty like klutzy, it seems. Like she's very clumsy, and we kind of see that change throughout the movie, I think. And the one thing too is with her like now working in the onsense, that first night is so sad 'cause she like goes back to the room with Lynn, or with and she just starts like to kind of cry, right? Because it's like, she's away from her parents. It's like all this happens in like a very short amount of time. And this is when she realizes that she's losing her name. So what happened at the beginning of the movie? So she had those flowers that she had gotten from her friends because she was moving away, and it had a card with her name on it. And early in the morning, she goes to visit her parents in the pig pen and is like, "I'm going to get you guys out of here one day." And it's really cute because Haku was there. And
they have their first moment.
She's already forgetting her name, and he has that card, and he's like, "Don't forget your name, because if you forget your name, you can't come back." And he gives her like the ongiri, like the rice seaweed snack, and she starts like eating it, and the tears that come out of her eyes are just like big wallops, like they just keep growing and growing as she cries.
That was funny.
Like, but she's just like this devastated
little
girl. And also, like, that's Haku, like, doesn't remember who he is, which is why he can't go back either. He, like, the Haku was a name that was given to him by Yubaba as well. So he's stuck in this world.
But he also knew that Sen had to eventually remember her name because he shares that with her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
And then he knows it too. Like he knows her name is like a big thing. But throughout the movie, you'll notice like, so Sen's kind of like, none of the workers kind of like her at first because she
Especially
doesn't
Lin.
know what she's doing.
Like Lin didn't like her at first, and I actually kind of like their relationship because she like ends up being like an older sister to her.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like Lin, especially like the line after where she's like, if you harm a hair, I forgot the exact line, but she's like, if you hurt that girl, you're in big trouble. Like she was like telling No Face essentially, and who's like this really powerful thing, and like, and if you remember, like the first time they met, Lin didn't even want to go near her, but like later on, like she becomes the older sister. I really like that change in that relationship.
yeah. And I feel like Lin knows what's up too, and she kind of like a little bit rebellious. Like I liked when they were like lights out, and Lin's just sitting outside with Chihiro.
That was
and
a good
just,
scene.
Like watching,
Yeah.
they're just like hanging out and eating late at night. They're like not doing what they're supposed to do, kind of thing.
To be honest, I love the whole like. So pretty much a bulk of this movie was just her kind of working at this bathhouse, and it's just like struggling because she's like very klutzy and very like I don't say delicate, but like wimpy. And it's like her and Lin are like working together, and I love all those scenes where they have to like clean up the tub, and it's like who was
so
here?
gross.
Like who the hell took a bath here? That there's like grass everywhere. It's
Okay,
so fun.
let's get to the
Like
stink
grimy.
stink spirit.
Yes.
Okay,
I
so
love this
there's
scene.
So basically, the people come in here to get clean, and there's sort of like these different types of gods that come in, and then there's the stink spirit. It is like grime. Nobody wants to go near it. Everyone is clearing a path. Obviously, Chihiro is like now tasked with trying to clean this thing, right? And it like that whole scene of her trying, it is the grossest thing. And they're like doing their best. And even, did she like basically almost flood the place as well at one point?
Yeah. I also love how all the characters are like trying to be polite to this really stinky spirit, but then like talking about it behind its back.
Yeah.
That felt like so real. Like if you worked in a hotel, that's how like people would act or something.
So true.
Yeah, that is true. You're like, well, as long as you're paying. Well, also before this scene happens, so No Face like is sort of seen throughout the movie. He's waiting outside in the rain, and she leaves the door open for him to come in, and is like, "You can come in," and that sort of sparks a thing because No Face is like, he's kind of like absent of everything. Like he like imitates behavior in a sense, right? Like he sees people using gold, right? So he's like, "Oh, I'm going to like create this," because he could just create it out of his hand and like give you this, and he really like just wants Chihiro to like him, I guess, right? Like it's the sort of this weird acceptance thing, and so she's kind of like busy with the stink spirit, and meanwhile, No Face is just like
creeping around.
This stink spirit you end up discovering in the end because like all this stuff starts coming out of it. Like there's a bicycle stuck in it. It's basically just a polluted, like the spirit of a polluted river. So a river that has just been completely polluted, and that is why the spirit is like this, right? Which again,
and I love that with. Sorry if I may interject. I love that about Miyazaki's work. Like there's always this underlining like environmental like preservation theme to it. Like Spirit, what do you call that? Mononoke Hime also did the same thing. It's about like the old gods trying to protect nature while like humans are trying to destroy it. Like I love that about this because like this stink spirit who we think is just like this like the kami of garbage, which what everybody thought of, wasn't actually true. He's a kami of like this river. And then like when Chihiro was trying to clean him and nothing was working, she discovers like a thing on the side of his thing, and it ended up being a bicycle. And they all work together. And I love that whole thing where they all work together to like pull the bicycle out. And they're all just like heave, and then more and more garbage comes out of it, right? And then
yeah, it's so gross. Like
it's so gross. But then afterwards, like, don't you feel so clean when he like flies out of there? You're like, that's what it feels like to take a good shower.
Yeah, but it's completely the thing. It's like it's showing like all these spirits are dirty. Like it's this thing of just like overconsumption, and then not even overconsumption, but just like not caring for like this world or this planet anymore, right? Because that's basically what this is. Like a lot of these people are here, or a lot like like there was a bike thrown in there. And so it's weird because it's like the bike was thrown in the real world, but they needed to like get it out in the spirit world to like actually clean its soul, right?
Yeah, I heard that actually came from Miyazaki's experience cleaning a river one time. And there actually was a bike in the river, and he kind of like just incorporated that into the film. So I think there's definitely that theme of environmentalism there.
I love that he does that. Apparently one of the reasons like he drew Chihiro the way he drew her as well, he was talking about in shoujo manga, like basically these like comics that are geared towards young girls. He's like, it always shows these girls looking in these like, you know, there's a certain animation style. And he's like, and I just wanted to draw like this like normal young girl, like, you know what I mean? Not sort of anything fantastical. Like even her outfits, like that's probably like how I could have dressed when I was like 10 years old, just like shorts and a t-shirt and whatever else, right? But there's just something so endearing about her. Like, don't you know what I mean? Do you guys like feel that? Like, I just
absolutely.
feel like you want to protect her and you are like rooting for her too, like the whole time through.
And I like that she's flawed, and I like that she has to go through this struggle. And I think that's what makes you want to root for her, because otherwise you're like, oh, this kid's annoying. Like at the beginning, like why is this kid spoiled and annoying?
Yeah.
But
and Miyazaki really like makes you feel like this really amazing kinship and sympathy, because so that whole stairway scene where she has to climb this like really precarious thing where it's like the stairs that kind of is off a cliff. Like you feel so scared for her, because as if you were actually there. And not only that, like after her first day of like barely surviving her like her duties in this job, like when she was like with Lynn in the break room or whatever where they sleep, I felt as tired as she felt. You know what I mean? Like you just feel like going through the journey with her, you feel exactly what she feels, because it's like I've had days like that, and it's like Miyazaki does a really good job of like making you feel for this character. It's like which is like as far away from me as like a 10-year-old girl. It's like as far away from me as you can get. But like he still does it in like a really like awesome way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like how he does that. How he just can express those kinds of things we experience from going through like our daily routines or whatever, and he somehow incorporates those kind of routines into the movies, and the characters do get tired of whatever it is that they have to do, but they somehow find the strength to get through it. So
can I just say, like, I saw this movie almost like right after I moved to Canada, so like I had a lot of like the same feeling that she had of like living in this new world with like this professional setting that has like their own systems and their own cultures and stuff like that. That's exactly how I felt when like while I was watching this, pretty much. So like it like really resonated in a lot of ways. But yeah, there's also like this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's just also it's just like a weird like not homesick, but there's a longing. Like I find this when I watch like Studio Ghibli movies, like I often feel like a longing for something that I don't quite know.
Yeah,
like it's always like a little bittersweet, but like in a really beautiful way. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm the only one who feels that.
No, for sure.
Okay, so the sting spirit, they end up, cleaning it up. It's this beautiful river.
Don't forget the sting spirit. The river spirit gives her like this bean. And
like
you
don't
really know. Yeah, no, it wasn't a dumpling. It was a bean. I know what you're thinking of. She was eating a pork bun. And then she like takes a bite out of it, right? Like,
yeah, and it's like gross.
And then she like takes 2 more bites out of her pork dumpling to get the taste out of her mouth. That was so funny.
Yeah,
but yeah, so they give her like the river spirit kind of gives her this bean, and you kind of get that, like you kind of sense that it's like a sort of a MacGuffin, like it's a power, it's like a magical item, but she has no idea what it's for, which
100% is like a MacGuffin for sure. It's just pushing that storyline, but. Yeah, so this is where No Face, like her inviting No Face in, kind of sort of bites her in the butt, because what happens is like No Face sees like money means something when he like when people give money, they get stuff. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna make a whole bunch of money and keep paying people these things, right? And he tries to give Sen money too, or Chihiro. I see, even I got to call her Sen, but he keeps demanding food and everything else. But meanwhile, what's happening with Chihiro is that she sees these like paper I think they're called shikigamis. So they're kind of like these like paper airplane bird like creatures, and they're attacking this like dragon. And And I feel like, does she recognize that like Haku is that dragon?
She suspects it because she sees him, I think, one time turn into a dragon. She saw a dragon flying away, and I feel like she knew, but like she kind of suspected, but she doesn't like entirely know that it's him. But anyway, surprise, it was him. It was Haku.
Yeah, I feel like she also has a lot of compassion for other characters, and she feels like the need to do the right thing. So yeah, I feel like regardless of if she knew it was him, she would have done what she did.
But these paper shikigamis are like literally like going at him, like cutting him up and everything, and they kind of like break into sort of like the penthouse, I guess you could call it, and essentially like Sen or Chihiro, I don't know why I keep going back and forth with her name. I mean, either one is fine. But she is trying to sort of save him. Dragon Haku crashes into Yubaba's penthouse in the end, and Sen follows him up the stairs and into that penthouse, and we see this person named Zeniba, who is, lo and behold, Yubaba's twin sister.
Yeah, that's good. This part got weird. This was like a strange moment in the movie.
Yeah, a movie that was already weird got a lot weirder there. Because what ends up happening is that she mutates Yubaba's son, Bo, into a mouse, and then creates like a decoy Bo out of those like heads, I think, right?
Yeah. The weird heads.
Yeah, and so there's basically, she like leaves a fake baby who, like, this fake baby almost like killed Chihiro as well, right? Like almost like he was like, I'm gonna break your arm if you don't do this thing, which is like real bratty, and also terrifying. But Haku is really like gravely injured at this point, right? Apparently, like Zeniba told Sen that Haku had stolen a magical golden seal from her, and warned Sen that it carried some sort of like deadly curse. So yeah, Zeniba's like actually not there. She's like, her soul is projecting, or as I said before, force projecting herself into that room. And so Haku actually tries to attack the Shikigami again, which basically eliminates the sort of Zeniba's hologram. And he ends up falling into the boiler room with Sen and Bo, which is now a mouse, and a harpy. There was like a harpy also that was on his back.
Yeah, that was Yubaba's like right hand man, and then I guess Haku is a right hand man, but it was like her pet like bird who turns into like this adorable little like flea that carries around Bo. So I love that. A little mouse. I love that whole thing. Yeah, which is like a mouse. An overweight
ragtag
mouse.
Team.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like there's a good witch, bad witch thing going on with Zeniba and Yubaba, and Zeniba kind of like tries to help Chihiro.
It's very much Alice in Wonderland, and if you think about it, with like
Chihiro
or
like
being Alice, and then there's like the good witch and like the bad witch.
Or like the Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah, maybe. Wait, there is a good and bad. I literally combined Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland there. It's for sure a lot like that.
Zeniba essentially so she says like Haku's cursed now because of the thing that she tries to steal from her, and she tells Chihiro that or Sen that she needs to go. I think return it, right? She needs to return it to Zeniba.
Yeah, that's
in order to break the curse.
For sure. And what she does before that, so like they're in the boiler room and she has that like gross little seed thing and she feeds it to Haku, and Haku like takes it and then ends up like vomiting out the seal and a black slug that Sen just like crushes with her foot. Right?
Yeah. I think she tears it in half.
So disturbing.
Yeah. Like she gets like pretty freaked out. And so Haku's pretty much unconscious. So then Zen's like, okay, I'm going to return the seal and apologize to Zeniba so I can lift the curse. But meanwhile, while this is happening, like No Face is going crazy inside the onsen, right? Like he's giving people more and more money. He's like making it rain. People are like, yeah, whatever. Like, but all he really wants is Sen. Like that's all he wants. He wants her attention. He thinks this is going to bring it.
He also starts eating a bunch of kami. Remember?
Yeah.
First she eats like the toad guy.
Yeah.
That almost gives her up in the bridge, and like the night before, and now like after like they're feeding him more and more food, and he's just like this insatiable hunger that just like will never like just never gets filled. And eventually he starts eating people. So it's so
Yeah, he starts eating everybody who like wants all the money. So everybody who keeps taking lots of money, he eats them.
yeah.
Yeah,
And the
really
cool
is.
part about that is every time he eats somebody, he adopts a feature from them. Like
Yeah.
he couldn't he couldn't talk before until he ate the toad kami.
Yeah.
Then he gets his voice, and then after a while, like he even gets hair from like one of his other kami that he eats. Like it was a
Whoa.
really weird thing.
That's creepy. It's like the mummy.
Yeah, yeah, right.
But yeah, he also, I feel like his obsession with Sen is a representation of lust, which is like another of the 7 deadly sins.
Mm.
Oh,
So, like,
maybe.
it's like tied in.
I always thought of it as like he kind of knew that she was an outsider as well because he sees her on the bridge and she's like not like anybody else on that bridge, and that's kind of his lot in life as well. Like he's an outsider. Nobody knows. Like he doesn't even have a name. He doesn't have a face, right?
Yeah.
So like I feel like he felt a kinship with her in a way, but like really. To be honest, like we're all speculating because there's really no motive for No Face, which is kind of cool at the same if you think about it, right? Like he just
'Cause he's
kind of wrote
such
a
a-
character
and-
with no motivation.
Yeah, because it's honestly like to me one of my most interesting characters in that movie, and also I think it's because like she showed him kindness when people watch
That's right,
don't
yeah.
really notice him or anything, and they were like, "This is a mistake. You don't invite this type of spirit into the the onsen, right,
Mhm.
into this bathhouse." But essentially, like they all find Sen, and they're like, "You need to confront him because she's the one that he wants." Right. And this is kind of where you see how like much more brave she is really because she does confront him. Right.
Yeah.
Like she's like, I don't want your money. I don't want anything. And what she ends up doing is she feeds him the rest of that seed, whatever is left of it. And as she does it.
And it was really sweet because she's like, oh, I was saving this to save my parents, but I think it might help you instead. And she just literally
Yeah.
gives away
Mhm.
her skeleton key to save her parents. It was this really cool scene. But but before that, remember Yubaba's like, okay, we need to get him out of here, but squeeze as much gold as you can out of it first. This motherfucker.
That's so true. That's so true. I do. That's
She's
the
so
thing.
enterprising.
Yeah, legit. She's a good business owner. In terms of what she's doing, and that's why the thing is like she's not fully evil. Like there's no character
Not
in
at
this
all.
where you could be like this is evil
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. But the thing is when he does give her when Sen gives No Face that seed or whatever's left of it, he starts following her out of the bathhouse because she's like I'm going after Zeniba. I need to save Haku, and as he does it, he keeps like throwing up everything he's eaten. So like the people are coming out and everything else. So
Mhm.
no one is actually
No one died.
Yeah. But she gets a train ticket. So she gets the train tickets from Lynn because basically she has to
No,
take a train.
I thought it was Kamaji. It was
Oh,
Kamaji's train ticket.
Kamaji, yeah.
No. She gets the train ticket from Kamaji. He kind of stows it away and he's kind of saving it for a rainy day or something. But he like gives it to her, to save Haku, which is like so cool of him, man. So cool, Kamaji.
I know, like it's very like he is like this really sweet, caring person, and that's what you like see with these people. Like Lynn is such a also caring person, like you said, like this older sister, and then even No Face, like kind of as he's regurgitating, he's slowly going back to his form, and he's following her to the train station, which this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire
Yes, me too.
movie.
Me
The
too.
music, the way it plays, her waiting for that train on that because there's like all this
On
water
the
there.
flood, yeah, because it
And then
rained like
Lynn
crazy.
tells her to be. I think does Lynn had some sort of conversation with her that I can't quite recall, but I think what does she says something to No Face about coming along with them, but like
No,
you know.
Lynn just says like, oh, I think she was worried that No Face was coming, and then like Chihiro's like, I think he's sick. I think it's better if he comes with me. And then she screams from far away. She's like, if you harm a hair on that girl's head, you're in big trouble. Even though she just saw this thing eat a bunch of her coworkers. But I love that about her.
That's true. But so they're waiting for this train stop, and they get onto it, and then the sequence is beautiful. The music that's
Yeah.
playing, I forgot what the actual name of the song is, but it's something to do with a train, I think. And they're passing by all these different stations, and these people are coming on are like ghost like people, and there's a lot of like theories around like are these actual like being people who are being picked up who are dead and spirits now, and
Ooh.
and all those kind of things.
Oh,
I don't know if that's the case.
interesting.
That was just like a guess or something, but like, you know what I mean? Like she's just
Yep.
sitting on this train, and I don't like this sequence to me is like just so beautiful.
Can I take the next sequence?
Oh, okay, you can
Yeah,
take the next
yeah.
sequence.
Because this is actually my favorite sequence. Yeah, I think like that sequence and this next sequence is probably my favorite in this movie, and I'll tell you why. So like they essentially get the sun starts to set, which I love. Like this whole like throughout this whole like train sequence, which is like overflown with like water, which is like awesome to see. Kind of it becomes dark, and then they finally get to Zeniba's house, and it was this cool thing where it's like the road, the railroad is kind of like surrounded by water, and then you see this like narrow pathway to Zeniba's house, and it's completely dark, and it's like obviously I'm assuming you guys have seen this movie because why would you be listening to this episode if you haven't? But if
Yeah,
you
a lot of
remember this,
spoilers.
yeah, if you remember this scene, like that was I think the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in anime up to that point, and I love it because that's actually how my house looks like in the Philippines. Like that's how it is.
Oh.
It's, the road, it's not a railroad, it's an actual road. It's exactly like that road. There's water on either side, and then there's like a long like creepy pathway to get to my place, and it's like, and I just love that they nailed the aesthetics of my place in the Philippines completely. So like I don't know what the heck me and Miyazaki having like what he has on me, but he like nailed me with this movie and the other movie and with Mononoke Hime. So anyways, he like
That's beautiful though. That's
Yeah.
like it's such a beautiful. There's something like eerie about it, but it is beautiful. Like, and there's like isn't there like a lamppost too? I
yeah,
think
there's a
that's random.
lamppost, and then on the other end of the lamppost is like a hand that like that's kind of like goofy because the hand was just like jumping up and down by itself, and it made like the Pixar headlamp. You know what I mean? It kind of made that noise. You know, talking about the Pixar,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
like in the
yeah,
beginning
yeah.
of Pixar
The
movies.
squeaky, squeaky noise. Yeah.
And it like takes her to this like humble cottage in this like really creepy dark place, which is but it's not like scary creepy. It's like very like endearing a little bit, right?
Mhm.
And then you meet Zeniba, which is interesting to me because I absolutely love Zeniba. But it's really interesting how he can create two characters with the same features and have one look so scary, and then like you see Zeniba and you're just like the same features, but you see like something different in her, right? Like you
A
feel like
kindness.
yeah, a
Yeah,
kindness.
it's the way she smiles and stuff. Is
Yeah.
different.
Even like
yeah.
the way she speaks is very different. Like it's a very like they have the same kind of shrillness in their voice.
Yeah.
I guess it is, but like kind of the phrases and things that she uses is very different.
Yeah,
Than,
but like what I mean is that like the features, like you would think is like kind of this mean feature, but then like when you look at Zeniba, those same features kind of change in your own
Yeah.
mind, right? Like
Mhm.
like the big nose just kind of seem nice now, not scary anymore, and the really big
Yeah.
eyes just seem like caring eyes instead of these like shark eyes that Yubaba had. I don't know. I thought that I've always thought that was like kind of genius of him to
Yeah.
like have these two things, these two characters, and then
Yeah.
but yeah.
One thing to note though, while this is happening, Haku has woken up on like back at the at the bathhouse, and what Yubaba had did was order that Zen's parents be slaughtered. But Haku reveals that Bo, her baby, is missing, and she's like, no, he's not, whatever. And then it's like you don't even recognize that that's like not your kid. So basically, he offers to retrieve Bo if Yubaba releases Sen and her parents. And Yubaba does agree, but only if Sen can pass her final. There's a final test that Sen has to pass when she comes back. So Haku, in the meanwhile, is like, looking out for, like, obviously you can see the curse has been broken already, right?
Mhm.
And when we flash back to Zeniba,
Oh wait,
Zeniba does.
wait! Before you move on, there was also a cool scene with Yubaba where the gold that No Face gives everybody, which she collects from everybody,
Yeah.
turns into dust, and then like she starts freaking out. But then when Bo turns into the three heads, she completely forgets about the gold and gets so mad about the baby missing. And I love that about her. It's just like she is very greedy, but at the end of the day, she's a mother first, and she like gets like completely forgets about the gold and gets so mad at Haku and goes like, "Where the fuck is my baby?" Like,
Yeah,
I thought that was a
essentially.
really cool scene.
And so, yeah, meanwhile, though, back at Zeniba's place, she tells, Sen, Chihiro, that her love for Haku actually broke the curse. And that Yubaba used the black slug to take control of Haku. So that black slug that came out of him wasn't from Zeniba, but it was from Yubaba, and that was what was controlling him. Because one thing you'll notice in the movie as well is that whenever it's just Chihiro or like Sen and Haku, like he's very kind to her, but anytime like Yubaba is around, like he acts much more harsher, and it's partly probably to protect her as well, because he probably doesn't want to show that he's too familiar with her, right? Like this, you know, for the sake of Yubaba and everything else. But you know, she goes there, and there's like really like this homely feel to Zeniba's house, and I feel like it's Zeniba's house, and I feel like it's the first time that Sen kind of feels at home in a while. But you know, they do need to eventually head back, and Haku actually appears at Zeniba's house in his dragon form to like sort of fly Sen and Bo and the Harpy back to the bathhouse. But No Face decides to stay, you know, and he starts like knitting. He becomes a spinner for Zeniba, because Zeniba's like knitting the whole way, and No Face is like he kind of finds a place where he can stay too, which is like, I feel like it's like people finding a place where they can belong is like a theme that's going on here.
Yeah, that's Chihiro's entire story arc. Yeah, for sure. It's about her like transitioning, right? Like moving away from her place and finding like being like even just like being comfortable in her own body, right? Like she's like becomes less klutzy. She becomes more sure of herself. She like faces like adversity, because in the beginning, like she was like beaten down. She was like kind of sad and gloomy, and she didn't want to face the fact that she was moving. And then when she moved into the spirit world, it was the same thing. Like she didn't want to accept that she was there. She was crying all the time. She was barely. And then by the end of it, like she was facing like, oh, you'll see in a bit, but like there's like all of her trials and tribulations. She like is more comfortable facing, right? So it's like. And it's also mirrored in No Face's story arc, where he like finds a place. So yeah, I think that's a very strong story arc for her, and it's seen in multiple storylines. So yeah, I thought that was really cool.
An important thing to note too is that Zeniba spins her like this elastic hairband that she ties her hair up with, or that she has. So that's something that's kind of important to note for later on in the movie before she leaves. But she does end up leaving, and so the Harpy and Bo as a mouse form comes with her, and they're riding like on, you know, Dragon Haku's back, and this scene is also like up there with one of my favorite scenes. The music that's playing, the way it's kind of shot,
so nice.
Is that mid-flight, like Sen starts to remember falling into Kohaku River years ago when she was little and being washed safely ashore, and so she guesses Haku's real identity as the spirit of Kohaku River, that his name is Kohaku. Right, and they start kind of like flying through the air together. Oh my gosh, guys, did you die at the scene?
Yeah,
it was like really sweet.
And that shot of him like shattering and his scales start flying everywhere, that was so amazing. Yeah,
like shedding his skin, and that's the thing, is that he remembers her because he saved her all those years ago, because he was that river spirit, which I think is such a beautiful thing.
Haku's so cool.
Oh my gosh, he's so cool. Like. Damn, like honestly.
Wait, can I ask you something, Saba?
Yeah.
Haku or Ashitaka?
Oh, but you also talked about Howl into this too.
Or or how?
Oh, I think. Okay, Haku's way too young for me.
Okay, no, but like forget about that. Like younger self.
If you were younger,
if you were
Chihiro's age,
yeah, like
if I was Chihiro's age, it probably might be Haku.
Yeah,
but,
what Chihiro or Sen or San? San or Sen.
Okay,
from
I love Sen. Like Sen, I feel like she's like a little sister, but like San is like just so cool. Like I like Mononoke Hime was like the first Studio Ghibli movie I watched, so that is very close to my heart. You know,
for me, it's the same thing. Ashitaka and San. Like I think they're like. But anyway,
we're definitely going to cover this movie. We're definitely
100%.
We're gonna be covering a lot of these movies, so don't worry. But so they end up getting back to the bathhouse, and when they're there, like you'll notice how like Sen kind of start as an outsider, but you see all these like people. Kristina, I think this is seeing you like kind of like rooting for her, because like Yubaba's there and is like, all right, here's your task.
Yeah, I think this was my favorite part of the movie, because I think this is where we really see a change or growth in Chihiro or Sen's character. And basically, Yubaba wants to give her a final test, and everyone else starts protesting, like, "Oh, she's been through so much. Like, let it be. She doesn't need to do that. Even Bo, who transitions back into human form at this point, defends her and says like, "Mom, it's okay. I'm okay. Like, don't worry. We don't need to do a test." But Sen steps forward and she says, "I promised I would do a test, so let me try." And I think this is kind of like a pivotal moment for her character growth and for the movie.
For sure, yeah. And the test itself is essentially there's a whole bunch of like pigs that are brought in front of her, and she has to choose the two that are her parents. They all look the same at this point, right? I remember at this point when I first watched it being like, oh my gosh, like how are you supposed to tell which one are your parents? And she looks at them, and I guess this is like maybe a sense of her now understanding and seeing past things, you know?
Yeah.
She looks at them all and says that none of these are my parents. Like, these are not my parents. And all the pigs like turn back into people who like work at the actual bathhouse. They have like the crappiest jobs, like, no offense. But they're all
well, they're kind of like slaves or something, but they've all just accepted it.
Yeah. Like, just to sort of stay in that world. And people start cheering for her. There's this whole, you know, thing, like everyone is so happy for her. Even I think Kamaji and Lin are there. You know, it's like this beautiful thing because she's created this family in the spear world. But she, you know, she beat Yubaba. She's free to go. None of those people were her actual parents. Or none of those pigs were her parents. And so she's free to leave, and Haku kind of runs with her. You know, and the thing is, the one thing he says is that you're going to leave now, but if you turn back, you cannot turn around. If you turn around, you'll get pulled back. You'll be stuck in. So you have to keep walking and, you know, walk away without looking back, which is such a, like, you know, there's so much in that line alone, you know, it's like, you can't look back anymore.
Yeah, that line is her character arc. Yeah, that was so good. I think that was perfectly done. And
then you wonder if like they'll see each other again, right? As well, you know, and does he say something about them seeing each other again?
Yeah. She's like, Sen's like, are we ever gonna see each other? And he's like, I know my name now. Like, she can't control me anymore. So like, I like pretty much like alluding to the fact that like he is also free to go. Like, he's free to be the spirit of Kohaku River again.
Yeah.
But like, which means no more boy form. Sorry.
Yeah. Chihiro. But apparently the idea is that this river got covered over though too.
That's like, right. Yeah. They paved it over.
They paved it over for like building, and this is sort of goes back to like, you know, industrialization and sort of moving away from like these ideas, like these Shinto, like Japanese idea, like Meiji era and all that, and moving into this like post World War II like capitalist world, and sort of losing some of that, right? Was kind of like when I was reading was like a lot of Miyazaki's inspiration for this, and but she ends up seeing her parents like on the other side of the hill, and she runs to them. And they're like, "What are you doing? Like, we need to get back." And they're just the same as they've always been, right? And there's
I love how they're like, "Hey, why are you being so irresponsible? Where were you? Come back!" Like, motherfucker, you the irresponsible ones.
Yeah, I know. Really,
they're like chiding her for running off or something. Like, you're the ones that got stuck here, you dummies.
Yeah, like she literally saved you guys, but she doesn't turn around. She wants to, but she just keeps walking. And they go through the tunnel through the other side, and you know they find their car, and their car is an Audi, and that's the other thing. It's an import car as well, which I think is like,
I never noticed that.
Is like a pointed thing that like they, you know, are buying like, you know, Western cars. But the thing is, as she leaves the spear world, you'll notice that she still has her like hairband in her hair, and not only that, the car is now covered in leaves. Like, it's like time has passed, right? And they're like, we need to go find her house, and you know they end up driving away, and the music is playing. It's beautiful, but you're kind of left with like a question of like, how much time has passed? How long have they been there for? Right? Because it had looked like so much time had passed. If you look at like a season, at least a season with the leaves and everything else that were covering the car.
Yeah, for sure.
Does that mean they lost the house? What are the implications?
Yeah, I know. It's like they're like the movers apparently like had beat them there, so the movers are like, "Where are these guys?" Like, well, we don't really know because that's where the movie ends.
It'd be so funny if she goes through this like character growth of like letting her old life go, and she goes to the spirit world to accomplish it, and then they have to move back to her old town anyways because they lost the house. It's like, well, I guess I just go back to my old self.
Well, there's a rumor, and I don't know if this is true. It's like a Reddit rumor, but so Studio Ghibli, which when I went to Japan, I didn't end up getting tickets to go to the thing, and I should have, because who knows if I'll ever go back again, because who knows if we'll ever go anywhere again. But so they play movies and they play like little clips and stuff throughout the day. And apparently there's stuff that's never been released. And there's apparently the rumor is that there is a little short of like Chihiro now, because Chihiro remembered her name and she was not Sen, going to school in like her like school form and then seeing like a boy that was Kohaku there.
Oh.
But I don't know if this also could be like a fan fiction that someone made up. I mean, I'd read it.
I don't care.
I'm not gonna lie.
I like that.
But there is like this sort of rumor that there is something there that plays occasionally. Because apparently there's like a lot of unreleased clips that are kind of playing at that studio, and it's a beautiful place altogether. But this movie, guys, like we've pretty much, I mean, sort of jumped around there, but honestly, like it makes sense that this is one of the highest rated, like, you know, Studio Ghibli movies in terms of, you know, just winning an Oscar and everything else. The score is absolutely
so good,
out of the park. Joe Hisaishi is an amazing composer, and yeah, there's just something about this movie that feels so like dreamlike, and also it's very, like I said, like a really bittersweet kind of feeling to it.
Yeah.
And it's very different than Disney movies that you see marketed towards kids as well. Like just like the vibes of it and stuff in terms of, because I guess it's like a kids movie, but because it's like this like it's sort of, but it's not real. Like, you know what I mean? I guess like Pixar kind of does that, where they like make movies that are children movies, but like not just for children.
Definitely
like
more akin to Pixar, yeah, for sure. Because it has there's a lot of like really mature themes, and and it's just like it hits so many high notes, like so many different things. Just like this has a special place in my heart. I think like you're like what you're saying with like with the soundtrack. The soundtrack was so beautiful, but the world itself was so nice. Like I just want to take a tour around the world. You know what I mean? Just like take that train and just go around the spirit world. Like every shot in this movie could be paused and could be like a portrait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like it's just like so well done.
Yeah. So guys, last thoughts? Any last thoughts on this movie?
I just gave one.
Yeah, you're right. You just did. No.
Although I will say like this, and I'll Land Before Time is in a very short list of movies I watch whenever I'm sick. Like if I'm really sick and I'm at home, I just play this, A Land Before Time, and a few other ones.
Before Time is too sad.
Yeah, it is pretty sad. But yeah, there's like a short list of movies, and it always makes me feel better in a weird way, because it's like I'm gloomy anyways. So it's like I'm watching these like really melancholy, like sweet movies. Yeah, that's my last thought. My very last thought.
So guys, I think that's about it for this movie. You know, it's one of many, and we're really hoping to cover a lot more of these, you know, with it now being available on HBO Max, and you know, we're from in Canada, and it being now available on Netflix Canada, which is awesome because things don't often come to Netflix Canada.
Yeah, please watch these movies so you can join in our conversation, because we definitely want to do more Studio Ghibli movies. Yeah,
we're definitely, maybe next time we'll choose one that none of us have seen.
Yes, like yes, I'm down.
Yeah, Spirited Away was like kind of like a big classic there. But before we go,
and also like if anybody's worried, Jeff will be back to do more installments of the anime series. Because of COVID and everything else, like we've had trouble getting our other co-hosts back in, but definitely stay tuned. I think we might do what's next on the docket. I think Avatar. We might do Avatar with Jeff. So stay tuned for that. But yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. Before we go, if you enjoyed this episode, or if you have any feedback for us, we'd really love to hear what you guys have to say. Please give us a review or rate us anywhere where you get your podcasts, whether it be Stitcher and iTunes. If you listen to us on Spotify, no, there's no rating system there yet, but definitely drop by and leave us a comment as well. We're meanwhile_pod on Twitter and Instagram. So you guys can definitely, you know, come chat with us. Let us know if you want us to do another Studio Ghibli episode, and if so, what movie you guys maybe want us to do, or anything else. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.
And I hope you love this movie as much as we do.
Yeah, we love it. It's probably honestly one of the best animated movies.
Top 10 for sure. Movies, not anime. Top 10 movies.
Yeah, movies for sure. All right, guys, this has been Saba.
This has been Kristina.
And this is Chris. Later, dudes.